Morant with a running start. Elevates. Oh, it dunks. Oh, my goodness.
Tie game in overtime. Gasol will turn his heat. It's gone. Memphis on top. 7-10 remaining. Conley now with three. Count it. A 15-point lead for Memphis. And Blake Griffin gets into it on the floor with Randolph. Hard to tell if there are any punches being thrown under there, but Griffin took acceptance.
Adams going long. Morant. He hit it. Ja Morant. Insanity.
You gotta be kidding me.
Welcome to Grits and Grinds, a Memphis Grizzlies podcast. My name is Keith Parish. The Grizzlies played 2 games over the weekend. One was good, one was not. They split the road trip to Texas. They defeat the Houston Rockets on Friday night. Then on the second night of a back-to-back, in a listless performance, they get blown out of the building by the Dallas Mavericks. It's been a fun start to the season overall. If we look big picture, if we take in those 3 games as a 3-game segment, where you did not have Jaren Jackson Jr. You also kind of somewhat surprisingly did not have Zaire Williams. And then I'd call it very surprisingly, you didn't have Dillon Brooks for any of them. For me, big picture, I'd like to emphasize going 2-1. That's great. I said it before the season. Coming out, if you can go 2-1 in these first 3 games, if Dillon Brooks is not there, that's a win. So I'm taking it for a win. I'm feeling good about everything. The Mavericks game, historically, the Grizzlies have struggled with the Mavericks the last few years. And this game was a bit of a schedule loss. Yes, the Mavericks are good. Yes, Luka Doncic is now 6-1 against Ja Morant, but the Grizzlies did not have an opportunity to put their best foot forward. The Mavericks were coming off 2 days of rest. They were also coming off a heartbreaking loss where they blew a big lead to the Suns on the road. This was their home opener. So that's a lot of stuff to overcome if you're the Grizzlies, and they were not, in fact, up to the task. But let's talk about the good stuff. Let's talk about the overall general reactions we can have, and let's focus on Friday night, where Ja Morant put on a show. I was hosting a watch party in Nashville, Tennessee at Noble's Beer Hall, and Ja Morant scored 49 points to help the Grizzlies overcome the Rockets. Not only did he score 49 points, he did it in just 32 minutes of playing time. This was just the 12th time in NBA history a player has scored 49 or more points playing under 32 minutes. He also went 5 out of 6 from 3. His one miss was basically a half quarter that hit the rim that he threw up at a shot clock buzzer. He followed up his awesome opening night against the Knicks with a 49-point masterpiece. He also had the game-sealing block, another chase down high off the glass block on Jalen Green. If we could have recorded after that Rockets game, we would have been sailing high, feeling very, very good about the Grizzlies because Ja Morant, he's making his threes, okay? Now, I think there is something positive to take from that. He is making his threes. Despite whatever happened in the Mavericks game, despite the fact that all of the Grizzlies' issues were extremely highlighted and they had no answer for anything the Mavericks were throwing at them, despite that, I think Ja Morant's three-point stroke is improved. And also, if you look back to the playoffs last year, remember in that Warriors series? He was making his three-pointers in that Warriors series. If you count that Warriors series in the Grizzlies' first 2 games of the year, that's a 5-game span because Ja played 3 against the Warriors. In that 5-game span, Ja averaged making 4.2 three-pointers per game. He also shot 50% from 3 over that span. Oh, by the way, averaged 39.6 points over that span. I know we don't normally tie one season to the other for a game span, but it just shows this guy. We know he's an MVP candidate. Basketball Reference, after the 2 games to start the season, had him as the number 1 MVP option. Of course, that turned into dust with that Mavericks game. But over the first 2 games, Ja Morant scored 83 points, which is, of course, a franchise record. It is actually the 6th most points ever scored over the first 2 games of an NBA season. Ja Morant now holds the 5 highest scoring games, regular season or postseason, for the Grizzlies. This 49-point game against the Rockets was the second highest scoring game in Grizzlies franchise history behind Ja's 52-point game. The only other player to score over 45 points in Grizzlies franchise history besides Ja Morant is Mike Miller. So Ja was electric in this game. Gave you all the highlights. Made those 5 3-pointers. In the fourth quarter, he put together some mid-range jumpers, some pull-ups, and you saw the thing like, wow, if this guy has it all together with the shot, he could be the best player in the league. And that's all the good stuff and the exciting stuff. And there were other solid performances by his teammates, notably the 3-point shooting. LaRavia and Roddy combined to go 5 for 9 from 3. In your face, Keith. The rookies whom I doubted. The rookies whom I doubted knocked down the 3-pointers in this one. Tyus Jones made 3 3-pointers. John Conchar, who I said could not shoot 3-pointers with volume. He's proven to be unwilling. So we don't know yet. It's unproven if he can increase his volume and maintain that accuracy. Well, guess what? He made 3 out of 6 in the Rockets game. The team ended up with 19 3-pointers in this one. 19 3-pointers, and you only got 3 from Desmond Bane. Santi Aldama went 0 for 3. The Grizzlies, after their first 2 games, first in the NBA in 3-pointers made, first in the NBA in 3-pointers attempted. Stunning stuff. I said the shooting's a concern. They came out launching 3-pointers at a higher rate than they did all of last year. They made 17 or more threes 5 times in the entire season last year. They did it in both of their first 2 games. 2 out of 2 for the Grizzlies on making 17 or more threes. Now, of course, we know now that they ended up making only 9 against the Mavericks. But when I said that the shooting got worse, which it still might, by the way, we all know about small sample sizes, right? When I said the shooting got worse, the caveat I gave for if it improves is, all right, what if Ja Morant picks it up? Oh, he kind of has. Well, if Ja Morant picks it up, if Conchar can't increase that volume and maintain the accuracy, if Aldama actually hits threes like he did in preseason, if the rookies make their shots like they did against the Rockets, if Tyus Jones keeps firing and makes them at the same rate that he did last year, if all those things happen, they can maintain their 3-point shooting or improve on it. Well, guess what? All those things did happen, which is awesome, which is great. Of course, they happened just for 2 games. And by the way, for the people taking victory laps, being like, oh, look, we don't miss these guys. Our shooting's fixed. The Grizzlies made the most 3-pointers in the NBA over the first 2 games. And they went to overtime against the Knicks. And they rallied in the fourth quarter to beat the Rockets. They didn't cover 1 time. They made 36 3-pointers over 2 games and failed to cover the spread. Being 2-0 is awesome. I am ecstatic and thrilled to be 2-0. But the fact that they made all those threes and they weren't winning by a lot, they eked out victories, kind of demonstrates that most of the concerns that we talked about, a little bit valid. But again, big picture, being 2-1 and being 0-2-1 against the spread, awesome. Being 2-1 and having the second worst defense in the NBA through 3 games, I'll take it. We're just trying to survive the regular season right now. We are in survival mode until Dillon Brooks comes back, until Zaire Williams comes back, until Jaren Jackson Jr. comes back. Again, you're disappointed to get embarrassed and blown out, beaten down by your Southwest Division rivals in the Mavericks, but going 2-1, having 3 games in 4 nights, it's great. It's all good. I'm very excited about it. By the way, the biggest contributor for the Grizzlies still being top 5 in 3-point attempts on the season after 3 games, you got to give a lot of credit to John Conchar. Extremely small sample size. We're just 3 games in. But his per 100 possession 3-pointers attempted has more than doubled. Some of my skepticism about Conchar being able to do that is over the last 2 years, he averaged 4.7 3-point attempts per 100 possessions. Well, through 3 games, he's launching them at 10.3 attempts per 100 possessions. He's making as many three-pointers per 100 possessions as he attempted the last 2 years. He's making 4.6 three-pointers per 100 possessions. These are elite high numbers. Yes, they will tail off. I think. You would certainly think so, but I guess I shouldn't doubt John Conchar doing a great job getting the shots up. Now, the three-point concern that I had preseason was briefly assuaged in the first 2 games. Although I'm not convinced that it's magically better. I am encouraged what I see from Conchar, encouraged from Aldama, encouraged just like the rookies. Maybe LaRavia, maybe he's just a gamer. Maybe he needs the juice of the actual competitions really mattering, because he has made shots at a much better rate. He's still not making those pump fake flyby threes. When he gets the pump fake as the defender in the air and then relocates, no, he's missing them badly. He airballed one against the Mavericks. But the three-point volume is increased, and I'm impressed, and I'll be curious to see if that maintains. Everything else, all the other concerns that I highlighted in the preseason, they're basically rearing their ugly heads. The only exception is I really worried about the shot blocks, that we wouldn't get that many block shots. They are blocking shots at a pretty solid rate. They're 4th in the NBA in block shots per game right now. But everything else, I'm worried the second unit will struggle. I'm worried we won't be as good at rebounding. I'm worried our defense will take a big step back. I'm worried we won't get steals and generate those turnovers. All those things have happened. The Grizzlies are 29th in defensive rating. The only team with the worst defensive rating is the Houston Rockets, who the Grizzlies dropped 129 points on. And by the way, the Rockets crowd, it felt like almost like the bubble year. It looked like there was nobody there. The Rockets' energy in the second half was so lethargic. I know they played well. The Rockets made a ton of great shots. They have a lot of very young talent. The Grizzlies were down in the fourth quarter. It took everything the Grizzlies had to win this game. It took Ja Morant putting together one of the greatest performances I've ever seen for the Grizzlies to win this game, because the Grizzlies are not getting stops. They are not keeping the other team out of the paint. They are not winning the points in the paint battle. They're not winning the second chance scoring battle. Again, I have to keep saying this to be responsible. 3 games, very small sample size, no big deal. But through 3 games, the Grizzlies are 29th in defensive rating. They are 30th in defensive rebound percentage, which is keeping your opponent off the offensive glass. Another way to say that is they're 30th in opponent offensive rebound percentage. So they're getting crushed on the glass. They are 22nd in steals. They were first in steals last year. And they are 22nd in opponent turnover percentage. They're not forcing the turnovers. Again, this is not doom and gloom. I'd like to go back to the overview again. We're 2-1. Dylan, Zaire, and Jaren are coming back. But the problems of like, hey, the bench is a problem. Yeah, the bench is a problem. The second unit, it makes sense. Why would the second unit not be a problem if they don't have Zaire Williams, if they don't have John Conchar because he's moved to the first unit? They don't even have Santi Aldama. We're now considering Santi Aldama a positive. I mean, yeah, he didn't live up to his first game. His first game was unbelievably good against the Knicks. His next 2 games, a lot of problems. Some good stuff mixed in, but much more of that like, all right, this guy's a backup. This guy's not the second coming of, I don't know who to compare him to. But all right, he's not going to give us 15 and 10 and 3 blocks every night and make us threes. He's going to be a solid role player, we think. I don't want to limit his ceiling. He could become a dominant NBA starter. But it makes sense that the second unit is struggling, because we've seen it so far in the first 2 games. The Grizzlies just got manhandled when the bench came in. When Ja Morant was off the court, they were getting destroyed. The on-off net rating swing, it was wildly positive for every starter, wildly negative for every bench player. Now, it's kind of leveled off because everyone got blitzed against the Mavericks. Against the Rockets, the Grizzlies gave up 70 points in the first half, and a lot of that the lead was built against the second unit. The Rockets had a 26-6 run in the first half. Most of that, unfortunately, was on the second unit's watch, and most of it was on Xavier Tillman's watch. We haven't seen Xavier Tillman in non-garbage time since the first half of the Rockets game. They did that 10-man rotation, your normal 10-man rotation, with Dylan and Zaire out. But in the second half, they went down to a 9-man rotation. A lot of it was because, I don't know, for whatever reason, the Xavier and Brandon Clark pairing has not worked. It didn't work very well last year. They don't seem to want to play Brandon Clark with another big, which I think makes sense because they're really valuing the shooting this year. I mean, we give them credit. We give the coaching staff credit, the team credit. They are getting up more three-point attempts, and part of that is, all right, we can't have two bigs if Brandon Clark is on the court, maybe. And so I don't know if it's Xavier Tillman's fault that he had a minus 17 and plus-minus in the Rockets game, or if it's Brandon Clark's fault, or if it's the other player's fault for not making shots. I mean, yes, it's a team basketball game. But the Grizzlies made the adjustment in the second half against the Rockets to remove Xavier Tillman from the rotation, went with just a 9-man rotation. Against the Mavericks, on the second night of a back-to-back, they did not play a 10-man rotation. They played a 9-man rotation. My question would be, and I don't know the answer to this, my question would be, was it the game plan before tip-off that they were going to use a 9-man rotation? Or because of the starters getting shellacked and you finding yourself down 20 by the time you're taking Ja Morant out, did they say, hey, we can't mess around with the 10-man rotation. We have to put our best foot forward. Let's try to cut into the lead. Let's not go our full second unit. Let's just play a 9-man rotation. I mean, I could entertain the argument. I could entertain the argument that, all right, second night of a back-to-back, you need more bodies, more energy. I guess, I don't know. Third game of the season. But they did a 9-man rotation, and, they didn't cut into the lead anyway. Because, they're just not good enough, all right? Roddy and LaRavia made a bunch of shots against the Rockets. Roddy had that awesome play where he drove right into Jabari Smith's chest, knocked him backwards for a layup that put the Grizzlies up 4 in the fourth quarter. Basically the first time the Grizzlies had any breathing room. But then you saw against the Mavericks, yes, he scored 12 points. But, all right, he had a really rough first quarter, and also he had to guard Luka Doncic, and it did not go great. David Roddy against Luka Doncic, advantage Dallas Mavericks. So Roddy struggled, LaRavia struggled, and this second unit is not going to be able to generate its own offense. And if they're not forcing turnovers, which, by the way, I don't think they can, that's how the second unit succeeded last year. And so right now, so far at least, they are not generating those turnovers, but it's going to get better. I don't want to be doom and gloom. Again, it's going to get better. We're going to get our guys back. And, hey, you look up and you're 2-1. Can't say it enough. 2-1 was my goal. I'm glad we got there. Anyways, let's talk a little bit more about the Mavericks game if we have to. We'll do that right after this short break. Grizz Nation, the Grizzlies want you to exercise your right to vote. Avoid the lines on Election Day, Tuesday, November 8th, and early vote now through November 3rd. Get ready for Election Day by making sure you know the candidates and where your polling location is by visiting grizzlies.com/vote. All right, so after the awesome 2-0 start, when we were leading the league in every cool category, and Ja Morant was most made field goals, most made free throws, most points, was third in made threes, was 13th in blocks. After the fun of the first 2 wins, despite the fact that they were actually way closer than you'd think they would have been based on the number of 3-pointers we hit, they ran into a brick wall and a familiar foe. They lost to the Dallas Mavericks. They got outscored 64-36. So that's now the last 2 games. They gave up 134 points in the first half, 70 to the Rockets, 64 to the Mavericks. The Grizzlies only scoring 36 points in the first half against the Mavericks. That would have been their third lowest point total in a half for all of last season. And get this, the two lower halves they had scoring the basketball last year, they were both against the Mavericks. The three lowest scoring Grizzlies halves in the last two seasons, all against the Dallas Mavericks. We do not play well against the Mavericks. The Dallas Mavericks match up well against the Grizzlies. The Dallas Mavericks play well against the Grizzlies. You have to give the Mavericks credit. Jason Kidd or somebody's maybe figured something out about this Grizzlies offense. If you look at the first quarter shot chart, like you go to NBA.com and click on that shot chart, it shows 5 of the three-point misses were from deep. We're from like 4 to 5 feet behind the three-point line. That's like 18% of your shot attempts were basically desperation. We can't find anything. We're going to shoot it 5 feet beyond the three-point line. The Dallas defense was suffocating. Part of it, yes, second out of it back-to-back. Part of it, sure, schedule loss. But they were forcing the ball out of Ja Morant's hands. Steven Adams, bless his heart, looked very tired. He'd set the screens. Brevin Knight was talking about this on the local broadcast. Steven Adams was not rolling hard. He was not being a threat with his roll towards the basket. Maybe he's worn out. He was tired. But they weren't generating anything there. Desmond Bane a little bit off. Guess we should talk about Desmond Bane. We can do it right now. Desmond Bane has been struggling from the field. Desmond Bane is shooting 26.5% this season. 28.6% from the three-point line. This is not what we expected from Desmond Bane. Maybe that's another prediction I got wrong. Thought Desmond Bane was going to score 20 a game. Easy. This 3-game span is the second worst shooting performance over any 3 games in Desmond Bane's career. Since he became the starter last year, he's never had 4 straight games of shooting under 40%, which is what he would do if he doesn't get it together against the Brooklyn Nets on Monday night. Should we be concerned about Desmond Bane's poor shooting? I'm going to go with no. I went on this basketball index pod, and they were saying by all their metrics, Desmond Bane was not only the second best three-point shooter just by raw three-point percentage, he was also the second best three-point shooter in the NBA last year based on shot difficulty. Only Steph Curry was better. Desmond Bane drilled so many tough shots last year. It wasn't just open looks. That because of that, I think we can trust he's going to bounce back. It's going to be fine. I'm not overly concerned about the 3-game sample there. I do think there are positives to the fact that he's firing three-pointers. He's firing these shots up. Guess what we wanted him to do? I said it many times. We wanted him to shoot more. He's shooting more. He has not maintained the efficiency with the extra shots, but I think it'll come around. Not super bothered by it yet. But his per 100 three-point attempts, which is something we were talking about last year, it was 11 per 100. This year, so far in the season, it's 13.7. So he has increased his three-point volume. He's increased his overall shot volume. That's something we wanted to see. He's also getting to the line. And by the way, he's also assisting a lot more. His playmaking is way up. He's currently averaging 5.7 assists per game. I mean, yeah, I think that's going down. But still, coming off last year where he averaged under 3, I like the playmaking. I think he's going to be okay. He's going to find his stroke. Not something I'm particularly concerned about. It doesn't rise to the level of the rebounding. It doesn't rise to the level of the generating steals. Because my fear is, even when Dylan and Zaire and Jaren come back, I am concerned about the ability to generate turnovers. That has been one of the theses that I've stuck with, where I'm like, I don't know if it's going to work. I am absolutely delighted and encouraged by what I've seen from Conchar, the starter, Conchar playing more minutes, and I'm very encouraged by Santi Aldama's development. If Zaire gets out there and he shows that development, well then, hey, the Grizzlies are going to be in a great place. But the Mavericks game, you've run into a team that you keep losing to when they're healthy. You also run into a team that was especially motivated home opener, coming off a disappointing loss of their own. Yeah, you ran into a buzzsaw and you lost by 41. Are there positive takeaways from the Mavericks game? No, it's just one game. It's just one game is the positive takeaway. The rookies got to play. Kenneth Lofton Jr. got to play. Kennedy Chandler blocked some shots. You got a reality check if that means anything to anybody. Not a lot, I don't think, to take away from the Mavericks game, other than the Mavericks, I do still believe, are a bad matchup for the Grizzlies. Oh, wait, here's a positive. Ja Morant was 8 for 8 from the line. Love that for you, Ja. By the way, Ja is still, he's second in the NBA in free throws made and attempted. He's making 84% of them. That is awesome work. The Ja Morant who makes 84% of his free throws, the Ja Morant that makes those mid-range jumpers, the Ja Morant that can knock down three-pointers, that's your MVP level Ja. And that's what you definitely want to see. Anyways, the Grizzlies are back at it. They got a big week. They play Monday night at FedEx Forum, a home game against the new-look Brooklyn Nets. Should be an incredible game. Should be a hot ticket. There are tickets available. Go to FedExForum.com or Ticketmaster. Call 901-888-HOOP. Get tickets to that Grizzlies game. Help them out. Give them your voices to lend your support as they take on the Nets on Monday. Then they travel. They got a road trip. 4-game road trip. They go to the Kings on Thursday night. Not our normal Grizzlies night. Then they play at the Jazz on Saturday night. The Jazz, by the way, surprisingly 2-0 as of time of this recording. And then they play the Jazz again on Monday night. So they play the Jazz 2 times in a row. I mean, again, you circle this, you say 3-1 will be great. 4-0 is feasible, but I'm not going to get carried away. We hope Dillon Brooks comes back. It was a bit surprising he did not play against the Mavericks the way Taylor Jenkins talked the day before. But it seemed like we're doing the typical thing where once the guy gets questionable on the injury report, you assume for the Grizzlies questionable means yes, he's in. But he did not play. So hopefully his return is imminent. And then I believe, again, my vague understanding was that Zaire Williams is supposed to be back this week as well. So maybe he'll be around for the Kings game on Thursday. But those road games a little bit later, I will probably do a playback watch party for at least one of them. So make sure you follow along with me on Twitter at FastBreakBreak or at Grizzlies Pod to find details of those online virtual watch parties where we can watch the Grizzlies together. Anyways, I'm essentially ecstatic about the Grizzlies opening this season 2-1. I'm ecstatic about the thrill, the visceral thrill of Ja Morant in the first 2 games, of how well the rookies have performed, despite the hiccups, despite the flaws, how well Santi Aldama has played, how well John Conchar has played. Like, I'm excited with how good this team has looked, despite the humiliating 41-point loss to the Mavericks. I think good things are in store for the Grizzlies. Anyways, I appreciate you listening to this episode. If you don't already, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. Give me a 5-star rating in whatever podcast player you are listening to this episode in. I would really appreciate that. Anyways, hope you guys have a great Monday. Talk to you soon. Go Grizz.